Good afternoon, freelancers. Welcome to another Anthem video. I'm PTT, and today I want to present you with my current Storm build that I've been using through Grandmaster 1 and 2. My build is a Duel Ice build that utilises ice and prioritises ad control to its full potential. Now this video is going to be fairly lengthy as it's not just my build but also a build guide. We're going to be going over every inch of my build, components, inscriptions, weapons, you name it, and hopefully by the end of the video you will have the knowledge and information you need to either copy and understand this build, effectively create your own build, or tweak this build to suit your playstyle and or ability choices, or you could even just understand the way in which you create your own build and pick items that will synergize well with each other and make your javelin a force to be reckoned with. Now before we start, let me give you the bullet point format of what I'm aiming for when putting this build together. I think it's always important to have a goal in mind when making a build, so here's mine. Number one, I wanted a good crowd control build. Now this kind of playstyle and build really does suit the Storm in my opinion, and was pretty much the key focus when I started working on this build a few days ago. The crowd control role is also what made me decide to go for running all ice elements, as these are the best for widespread ad control. Number two, I wanted to improve my overall weapon damage. Now I do have some pretty good weapons in Anthem so far, but as like anything there is always a little more to give, and I wanted to maximise my weapon to their full potential. To this end I always kept it in the back of my mind when building out my component slot. Number three, I wanted to have a constant or near constant use of my abilities. Now this ties in with the crowd control point, but the aim here was to get my abilities back as quickly as possible, so I could of course use them to constantly control the enemy. Now the fact I'm using dual ice abilities also factors into this, as having a rapid recharge rate means I can constantly keep things frozen up, and that's not just good for ad control, but also allowing for higher damage output. And finally, number four, I wanted a build that would always reward me for doing something. Now this one may sound a bit weird, I agree, but I will get to exactly what it means later in the video. So what we're going to do now is go over all of my gear, talk about why I picked it and how it all works, and yeah, hopefully you all enjoy it guys. Now then, that's the kind of direction for this video laid out, let's just jump straight into it. Let's start off with my component slots then. And up first we have the Slingers mark. Now this increases gear recharge rate by 50% and lowers gear damage by -20%. It also has an intrinsic talent, hovering increases all weak point damage by 60%. It has two minor inscriptions, support plus 15% speed and machine pistol plus 17% ammo. Now this component was picked for two reasons. One, it increases my ability recharge rate, we know that this was one of my goals with this build, and two, it gives me increased weak point damage. Now yes, there is a downside of 20% less ability damage, but as you will see later we actually managed to negate this negative stat with other components and inscriptions. As for the minor roles, well sadly they're not very good at this point, and in Anthem's life cycle we're not really at the point of mid-maxing build yet, so I kind of just had to go with the roles that I had, but hopefully over time I can craft a few better versions of it. Up next then I have Token of the Pupil. Now this increases the number of combo chains by 2, and its intrinsic talent is hitting an enemy with a left back increases the right back damage by 60% for 5 seconds. Now the minor inscriptions on this are electric plus 2% effect and plus 45% pickup radius. Now this was a pick that was based on point number 1 crowd control, but also point 4 always being rewarded. The increased combo chain helps on the crowd control front, but the intrinsic talent is what really stood out for me. Using my left back ability increases my right back ability damage by 60%. This is a direct reward to my javelin for doing something. By using one ability, I get a buff on the other, and again this was one of my goals going forward. Now as for the minor talents, well, they're okay. Actually the 45% pickup radius is something I really like on the Storm, because it means I don't actually have to get too close to ammo or health to pick it up, as I spend most of my time hovering. Then it is actually a very good talent to have. The electric effect, however, it's not so great. As one, I'm not actually using electric on this build, and two, 2% isn't really anything to get excited about. Next then, we have Amulet of Winter. Increases ice damage by 5% and ice effect by 5%. The intrinsic talent is applying ice effects, increases weapon damage by 40% for 20 seconds. Now the two minor inscriptions on this are supply plus 13% drop rate and ultimate plus 23% speed. Now then, this is a really key part of my build and actually ticks a lot of boxes for me. To start off, we have increased ice damage, and as I focus the entire build around ice, it's almost a must have. But the intrinsic talent, applying ice effects, increase weapon damage by 40% for 20 seconds, also ticks the box that I mentioned earlier about improving weapon damage. While yes, I would love to use nothing but abilities all the time, some of the weapons I use are actually a great deal of fun to use, and having increased damage on them is a really good bonus. It's also very nice when your abilities are on cooldown and you're having to shoot things, because it's not like you're just slapping them in the face with a dead fish, you're actually doing some serious damage. Finally then, the minor talents on this component are extremely good, and that's because it's a direct ultimate effect that means I get my ultimate back super fast. The supply drop rate is also good because it means I get an increased drop rate on ammo and health, never something to shy away from, to be honest. Moving on then, we have Token of Daring. Increases elemental damage by 35% and decreases physical damage by minus 35%. Has an intrinsic talent, a shield break, increases seal damage by 20% for 20 seconds. The minor perks on this one then, they are impact plus 13% resistance and assault rifle plus 19% ammo. Now then, this is a bit of a weird one because yes, to start with, I get increased elemental damage, but I do lose 35% physical damage, so it's kind of a give and take trade-off that I decided to make so that my abilities would hit even harder, even if it means going against one of my core principles for the build. As I said before, with my cooldowns being so short and my weapon use being on the lower end of things, I decided to trade off some damage for increased ability damage, and to be honest, it's actually working fairly well. Now this may be one of those components I decide to change up later down the line if I do get something that's slightly better, but for now it's doing a job and it's doing it well enough for me to leave it in place, so yeah. The minor rolls here are fairly garbage, so I don't really pay that much attention to them, and if I do end up keeping this component, then I will definitely be looking for a better roll down the line. Moving on then, we now have Vanguard's Token. Increases armor by 25%. A shield break increases damage resistance by 10% for 20 seconds. Now this has thruster plus 8% and ultimate plus 20% speed for its minor inscriptions. Now I'm currently awaiting a tweet back from the developer team on what exactly this component does, because after some testing I'm really not sure. It either increases my damage resilience when my shield is broken, or it increases my damage resilience when I break an enemy shield. Now either way it's nice to have, and with the increase to armour it was a must for me, considering that this is an end game build that is going to be used in Grandmaster activities. Now there are several other components I would like to put in the slot that could improve the build a lot, but I just feel that I wanted to have a little bit more protection, as again I am using this in the Grandmaster difficulty activities and the enemies there do hit like tanks, so I decided survivability over damage here, and I'm actually happy I did. Now the minor inscriptions are okay. I love the ultimate speed increase, which now sits at 40% speed because of my other components, but given the chance I would take off the thruster roll. Moving on again then to my final component, Token of the Master. Increases blast damage by 35%, and the intrinsic talent is hitting an enemy with a right back increases left back damage for 60% for 5 seconds. The minor perks are machine pistol plus 15% ammo and weapon plus 17% ammo. Now this is a component I picked to synergise with my Token of the Pupil that, if you remember, is a left back increases right back damage, and again ticks a box for rewarding using abilities. It's also a very nice component that increases blast damage by 35%, so overall was a must pick for this build. The minor rolls are absolutely terrible, so again when mid-maxing I will be aiming for changing these out. Now then, that wraps up all of my components, and overall I am very happy with the choices. I can deal with a lot of damage, I have slightly increased survivability, my weapons hit harder, and overall it just all works together very nicely. Now before we move on guys, I do want to say that the component slots are really where you get to bring a build to life. It's where you get to make the most out of your build, and it's honestly where you should be concentrating most of your energy on when building your own build. Make sure that you're using components that you will utilise and not have gear on that will do absolutely nothing for your build. As an example of this, as a build running Duel Ice abilities, I wouldn't want to be running a fire damage increase inscription, as this just wastes a slot that could be put to better use. Now what we're going to do next is move on to my seals and my weapons, and this is where you will start to see my build coming into its own and start to see the synergy of the components working with the rest of my build. So up first we have my blast seal. Now this is the Winter's Wrath, and this is an upgraded ice storm. Detonates a series of icy explosions at the target location. Defeating an enemy from above refills charges, can occur once every 10 seconds. Now on the minors here I have gear plus 15% speed, AR plus 10% ammo, 40% pickup radius and machine pistol plus 18% damage. Now the reason I have picked this is again the very first point we made in the video, crowd control. Having the ability to freeze a large area is a great thing to be able to do, especially in endgame, and allows me and my team to easily deal with enemy mobs while not taking damage, as a frozen target very rarely is able to shoot back at you. Now, the minor rolls on this are not great, but they are good. The gear recharge rate is nice and again ties into me getting my abilities back quickly. The AR ammo is nice as I am using an assault rifle. The 40% pickup radius again as a hovering storm is nice because I don't have to be too close to the ground to actually get health and ammo drops. But the machine pistol roll is something I would change up because I'm not using a machine pistol. Other than that, I'm fairly happy with this ability overall, and it's a key point of the build that actually started the whole idea of this dual ice freeze everything crowd control build. Moving on to my legendary focus seal then, we have Black Ice. Upgraded a glacial spear, combo effect, chain. Defeating an enemy freezes others nearby. Now the minor inscriptions on this are pretty damn cool. Gear plus 200% charges, support plus 30% speed, support plus 38% luck, and elemental plus 150% damage. Now this is a roll that I was incredibly lucky to get, if I'm honest. The seal overall is amazing for this build and what I'm going for, but the minor rolls on it, well, they are something else. 200% gear charges is an amazing roll to get. The support speed increase is very useful. The support luck, well, that isn't actually something I'm ready to go into in too much detail about yet, but it is actually kind of a good thing. But the 150% elemental damage, this is an absolutely absurd roll that really has helped with the effectiveness and damage of this build. Now originally when setting up this build I wasn't running 2 ice builds, but when I got this drop I decided to give it a go, and well, yeah. I'm now making this video, so it's got to be said I was very happy with it. Now then, that wraps up my seals, guys. Let's quickly cover my weapons. Now before I do, I will say that I will link my weapon reviews in the video description for the Divine Vengeance. The Venging Herald review is one I aim to do next week, so make sure to stay tuned for that one. But anyway, enough with that, let's actually just get on with it. So up first we have my Venging Herald. This is an upgraded blastback. It's a handgun with solid striking force, and its intrinsic talent is Raptor's Deadeye. Hovering increases weapon damage by 200%. Now the minor inscriptions on this are assault rifle plus 3% damage, repair plus 25% drop rate, sniper plus 13% ammo, and weapon minus 22% reload time. Now overall this weapon is just amazing. The minor rolls are not great, but again, as a storm to have increased anything while hovering is a plus. The fact it's a 200% weapon damage is just incredible. Now like I said, I will do a full review on this later down the line, but for now just trust the fact that this is a great weapon, and if you have one I highly recommend that you check it out and use it. Up next then, I am using the beast itself, the Divine Vengeance. This is an upgraded Warden. It fires 4 short bursts, and every third weak point hit causes a large fiery explosion. The minor talents on this are auto cannon plus 5% damage, support plus 25% luck, weapon plus 18% ammo, and gear plus 15% damage. Now this weapon review, as I said, is linked in the video description, so I won't talk about it too much, but needless is it to say that it's probably the best gun in the game right now. It's definitely the best in its class, and again, if you have one, make sure to use it. Now the minor inscriptions here are The support plus 25% luck is very nice. The weapon ammo is, well, it's okay, but the autocannon roll is just pointless as this only applies to the Colossus. Now then, the gear plus 15% damage is a very nice roll, and to be honest, I wish I had it on more gear at this point. Moving on then to my only low level bit of gear, and that is my support seal. Now for this I am using the wind wall. This obviously creates a wall of wind at a set position that blocks projectiles. The minor talents on this are gear plus 15% speed, 25% harvest bonus, and LMG plus 13% ammo. Now this is a very good ability as it allows you to block incoming damage for a time, and this is good for many reasons. Now sadly there are currently no Masterwork support steals in the game for any Javelin, and that's why I'm running only an epic one, but I am looking forward to seeing what gets added later down the line. Now guys, I know that I've gone on for a long while, but I really do want to start doing some in-depth videos on, build going forward. So if you're still watching this, then I appreciate it, and I will try to get through the rest of it as quickly as possible. You think it's hard listening to? Well, you should try recording it and editing it. So what I want to do now is quickly talk about why this build is good, why I like it, and why it works so well. Starting off with a word I have used a lot in this video, synergy. What makes this build work so well, as far as I'm concerned, is the way that it all just works so well together. Having components that complement other components while also directly boosting main stats is something that is always well appreciated when looking at an overall build. Having intrinsic talents and minor talents that all work towards a set goal like maximising ability usage or weapon damage is again something that should be appreciated. If I was to say use a fire inscription when I'm not using a fire ability, then I would be making a really big mistake in maximising my build potential. But what I've put together here is something that works very well together, and hopefully you all agree. Overall, I think I've achieved my goals of having a build that is great for crowd control, increases my weapon damage, allows me to get my abilities back super quick, and rewards my Javelin with a bonus for pretty much everything it does. Now if you're looking for a Javelin that can clear out mobs super fast and effectively, hit like a tank with a weapon, and have near constant use of its abilities, then go create a Storm, give this build a go, and let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. Now I do want to start wrapping up guys, so I'm going to start by saying if you have any questions then please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. I hope that you found this video helpful and think it was well put together. Going down the road of build guides isn't anything new to me, as I've been doing them in games like The Division for over 3 years now, but this new format with Anthem is something I'm still getting used to, so I would appreciate your feedback. Anyway, I think all that's left to say is if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.